They framed me, they fired me, and that's how I unwittingly became the catalyst for a series of heartbreaking events: a divorce, a prison sentence, and multiple deportations. This is a long story, but if you stick with me until the end, you'll discover how I was wrongfully terminated and inadvertently triggered a chain reaction that dismantled a whole staff, resulting in several managers being fired or reassigned, the general manager losing his job and his wife, and one of the managers getting investigated by the FBI and ultimately arrested, with several employees facing deportation. I used to work at an upscale restaurant owned by a massive corporate entity that managed a variety of brands, all while I was just trying to make ends meet. I had poured 3.5 years into that place, hoping for growth and stability, but I had no idea that my world was about to be shattered. From day one, I vowed to learn everything I could. I wasn't just a server, I was a sponge, absorbing every detail as if my life depended on it. I climbed the ranks from carry-out to hosting, bartending, and even catering, all while earning a meager $12 an hour, plus tips that barely covered my rent in pricey Chicago. Management took notice of my relentless work ethic and decided to promote me to an unofficial supervisor role in the non-tip department. But this meant fewer hours and more instability for me. Desperate to make ends meet, I negotiated for a small pay increase, hoping to find some semblance of financial security amidst the chaos. I found joy in the little things: video games, the warmth of my pet curled up beside me. But soon, those simple pleasures faded as the storm clouds gathered over my workplace. Things spiraled when a new general manager stepped in, a man who was not just disliked but despised, casting a dark shadow over our once vibrant team. Our most beloved manager resigned, warning us of the impending wave of harassment and poor leadership, and I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Before long, the new manager began to replace long-standing staff members with his hand-picked team, and I was left navigating a minefield of shifting loyalties and fragile alliances. I clashed repeatedly with the new kitchen manager, a man who morphed into whoever he needed to be to stay in good graces with the latest boss. Eventually, my hours were threatened as management made promises they had no intention of keeping, and the moment I sensed a decision had been made against me, dread washed over me. My days were numbered. One night, after a massive catering event, they tried to send everyone home while keeping me behind, a clear signal that I was being targeted. I confronted the kitchen manager about breaking his promises, but he shot back, dismissing my concerns as mere complaints, as if my loyalty meant nothing to him. That's when the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. He wanted me out, and he was willing to do whatever it took to make it happen. After endless conflicts about my workload and being written up for working overtime without permission, the day of my firing finally arrived. I walked into the kitchen early, expecting my usual routine, only to be met with an icy glare from a line cook who offered me a free dish that had been canceled. When I accepted it, both the general manager and kitchen manager pounced on me, accusing me of theft, as if I had committed the worst crime imaginable. I tried to explain, but they wouldn't listen. Their minds were made up, and I was nothing more than a scapegoat in their twisted game. As I gathered my things, I recorded the confrontation on my phone, a desperate attempt to document the betrayal I felt in my gut. On the train ride home, I shared my experience online, my heart racing as I sought a new job, feeling like a wounded animal searching for safety. By the time I got off, I had set up an interview for later that day, and miraculously, I was offered a position shortly after. But during that interview, I learned my previous employer had smeared my name, claiming I had been fired for theft, a lie that cut deep. Fortunately, the new manager was willing to listen. I played the recording for him, and it confirmed I had been set up, leading to an immediate hiring decision that felt like a lifeline. Months later, I learned the restaurant I had left behind was under investigation, and a dark sense of revenge swelled within me, albeit reluctantly. The corporate office had received my recording, and my new manager consulted with his wife, a lawyer, about pursuing legal action against my former employer. The investigation led to explosive revelations about misconduct, harassment, and the exploitation of undocumented workers, and I felt a twisted sense of vindication mixed with guilt. In the end, the fallout was catastrophic: divorces, layoffs, and even arrests, leaving me grappling with the reality of my role in it all. I never sought revenge, I simply wanted to survive, but the ripple effect of my termination became a tidal wave that devastated lives I had once worked alongside. It wasn't just my job that shattered, it was my entire sense of self, and I felt utterly betrayed, discarded like yesterday's food. I remember the sleepless nights filled with anxiety, my mind racing, wondering how I would pay my bills, feed my cat, and keep my head above water. Hardy, my boyfriend at the time, tried to be supportive, but he was wrestling with his own demons, and my job loss only fueled his insecurities. His trust issues turned our home into a battleground, where every late night and every phone call became a source of suspicion. He'd interrogate me about where I'd been, who I'd been with, as if losing my job wasn't enough punishment for both of us. I tried to be understanding, to see that his jealousy stemmed from past relationships, but it was wearing me down, eroding the love we had. We'd have screaming matches that left me feeling hollow and emotionally drained, as if we were both drowning in a sea of doubt and fear. One night, in a fit of rage, he accused me of cheating with a coworker, and I felt a spark of anger ignite within me. I told him he was paranoid, that he needed help, but those words only drove him deeper into his insecurities. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard it rattled the walls, and I collapsed into tears, feeling utterly alone in my grief. The next morning, he returned, apologizing profusely, promising he'd change, but deep down I knew the cycle would continue: jealousy, accusations, apologies, and more pain. My job loss opened a Pandora's box of our deepest insecurities, and I started to question if we were right for each other, or merely clinging to the familiarity of our troubled bond. Meanwhile, at my new job, things seemed to brighten slightly. My manager appreciated my hard work, and I felt valued again, but the dark cloud from my past loomed ominously over me. Rumors began circulating about arrests, deportations, and one manager being investigated by the FBI, and I felt a conflicted sense of vindication mixed with the remnants of my own trauma. Hardy and I attempted to mend our relationship, but trust issues persisted like a ghost in the room, haunting every interaction. I suggested couples therapy, a lifeline I thought could help us, but he scoffed, believing we could fix things on our own, even as I felt the walls closing in. Our arguments escalated, growing more frequent and intense, until one night I found myself questioning if I loved him or was simply terrified of being alone. I confided in my best friend Lisa, who had always been my rock, and she urged me to put myself first, reminding me that I deserved better. Her words resonated with me, but the thought of leaving Hardy felt like stepping into the unknown, terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Despite our issues, he was my safe space, my constant, but was it worth sacrificing my mental health? I began to distance myself emotionally, focusing on my job and personal growth, trying to reclaim a sense of self I had lost in the chaos. Hardy noticed the shift, his paranoia flaring, and he accused me of planning to leave him, a truth I couldn't deny even in my denial. Our relationship had become a ticking time bomb, and it was only a matter of time before it exploded into oblivion. One evening, after yet another heated argument, I made the decision to pack a bag and leave, a symbolic act of reclaiming my autonomy. I told him I needed space to think, to figure out what I truly wanted, and he begged me to stay, desperation etched on his face, but I was resolute. Moving in with Lisa temporarily felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders, a breath of fresh air amidst the suffocating tension I had been living in. Being away from Hardy granted me clarity. I realized I had been sacrificing my happiness to maintain a relationship that was fundamentally flawed and toxic. The difficult decision to end things with Hardy loomed over me like a storm cloud, but I knew it was necessary for both of us to heal. When I finally broke the news, he was devastated, his world collapsing around him as he accused me of abandoning him, of giving up on us. But deep down, I understood it was the right choice. I had to prioritize my well-being over someone else's fears and insecurities. As I navigated the aftermath of our breakup, I found solace in my work and in Lisa's unwavering support, a comfort I desperately needed. The investigation into my former employer reached its climax, with several arrests and deportations making headlines, and I felt a bittersweet sense of victory. The general manager who had fired me lost not only his job but his marriage, and I couldn't help but feel a mix of satisfaction and sorrow for the collateral damage. In the end, I emerged stronger, more resilient, having faced betrayal, jealousy, and loss, but also discovering my own inner strength. The experience taught me the importance of self-worth and then the necessity of letting go of toxic relationships, no matter how painful it may be. Life continued to throw challenges my way, but I faced them head-on, armed with the knowledge that I could overcome anything. With each passing day, I rebuilt my life, piece by piece, reclaiming my autonomy and identity in a world that had tried to strip it away. Though the scars of my past remained, they served as a powerful reminder of my journey and the lessons I had learned along the way. I no longer sought validation from others, I found it within myself, and that in the end was the most transformative realization of all. Thank you for watching. For more real stories and powerful dramas, be sure to like, subscribe, and explore our I Wove You 2 channel.